before we got there, it was a bunch of kids high on cat with guns ruling the whole town, driving around in their, I guess like in their dad's BMW, driving around their dad's Toyota, the technical vehicle, running the whole place, doing whatever they want. The kids didn't like us because we just took away their fun. And the NGOs liked us because their supplies were not getting stolen from them by these kids and then sold back to them, or sold back to people on the streets.
It was absolutely a war zone, and certainly for the first month until we got really comfortable, or far more comfortable with understanding the local situation, everybody treated it as a war zone, and I think you would have been remiss if you didn't. Because the situation was extremely volatile, it was very complex by virtue of the culture and the political issues that go on within that culture and even within that locale. So it was a very complex situation.
Stay there, stay here.
What we had in the Canadian Area of Responsibility was in part just a bunch of petty thievery, but what was going on in some of the other areas of responsibility were deliberate attacks, the placing of mines, ambushes of vehicles, killings of soldiers. So we were on a slippery slope, February, March, April of 1993, towards increasing chaos. Now you've got the Canadian Airborne Regiment, you have trained them for a certain kind of mission, trained for combat, they were tough troops, trained for combat. Then they get in, they're asked to do basically public relations work in the first couple of months that they're there. Then all of a sudden there's an increasing number of incidents. There was problem with the discipline within the regiment to begin with, and I think you had a very poisonous atmosphere, and where anything could happen and did.
On March 16, 1993, Somali teenager Shadeen Abukar Aron entered a trap set for thieves through a hole in the chain-link fence of an abandoned compound next to the Canadian camp in Beledweyne. He was captured by Canadian Airborne 2 Commando soldiers and imprisoned under the watch of Private Kyle Brown. During the night of March 16th, the 16-year-old was allegedly tortured and murdered by off-duty Master Corporal Clayton Matchey.
I knew Clayton Matchey. We all did. Everyone in the command knew who Clayton Matchey was. Now I could spend the next few minutes telling how poor of a person he was, and I would be able to say that prior to the deployment to Somalia. Matchey was, he was a bad apple. He was. But the thing is with him, he was a bad apple. Low social skills, yeah. But in the field, he was a pretty good field soldier. That was, I will give him that. I will give Clayton Matchey was a good field soldier.
And there was never any intent whatsoever to cover anything up at the soldier level. Everybody said, we got a problem here, let's sort it out and get on with it. I know my boss at the time was extremely upset and I guess was hopeful of anything that might shed a different light on the situation. I guess fundamentally what it was that my boss was hopeful that he had died from injuries sustained in the event of actually capturing him and bringing him into the compound. But I mean, very clearly that was not the case. And as much as he had hoped it would be or wished it would be, he didn't make any effort to hide anything or cover it up.
How could it be the case that this kind of crime, which occurred on the 16th and was very, very soon detected, there was no real question about who had done what and what the nature of crime, that the minister isn't informed of it for 2 weeks. In fact, what we were told, and the briefing note is there from Vice Admiral Murray, who was the Deputy Chief of Defense Staff, this Somali has died under very puzzling circumstances, very perplexing death. No marks on his body, right? There's a little slight contusion, big mystery. Mysterious and perplexing death. We're going to have to get in medical experts, right, to do some refined autopsy to try to figure, how could he maybe he was sick, right? Well, I think Canadians who saw the photographs in Maclean's magazines, what was published years later, I mean, this was a person who was beaten to death, scarcely recognizable as a human being. I mean, you could tell it was a mammal, right? Looked like there were some bits of clothing left on him. Clearly that was a lie. Clearly, somebody at some point had to say, we're going to spin a story here.
Action should have been taken the day after, immediately, because this allowed a situation to develop that was totally unnecessary. So I would say a crime was committed against the Canadian Army on the 17th of March, the day after the significant incident. And that crime was committed in Ottawa.